He should have kept riding. That was the truth he would admit later, when the snow had covered everything and the law had finished lying. The cry tore through the prairie before dawn, thin, hungry, already fading, and a lone cowboy stopped where every instinct warned him not to. In the frost-bitten grass lay a woman stripped of her name, clutching a baby whose hunger sounded louder than gunfire. He took off his coat without speaking, knowing that one silent act would place him against a judge, a town, and a set of papers written before the child ever took his first breath. By nightfall, riders would come with torches and warrants. By Christmas morning, a courtroom would split open, and the man who claimed to own the law would reach for the child himself. What no one noticed then, what would matter later, was the small metal tag at the baby's neck, stamped with a single letter that did not match the records. That flaw would expose everything. If you want to see justice rise from the cold, subscribe now, watch until the end, and comment the city you're watching from. The cry came thin at first, more wind than voice, then split the prairie like metal tearing under strain. Cole Maddox hauled the reins back hard. His horse skidded, snorted steam, and stamped at frozen ground. The moon hung low and bruised behind cloud, offering no warmth and no mercy. Christmas night, and the land felt older than God. The cry came again. Weaker. Wrong. Cole slid from the saddle and let the reins loop his wrist. He didn't call out. Sound carried too far out here, and men learned early what sound could cost. He tilted his head, listening, as if the earth itself might finish the sentence. There, near the swale where dead grass bent low and the frost pooled thick. He moved fast. Boots cracked ice. Grass rasped against his legs like wire. He dropped to one knee and saw her. A woman lay folded into the ground, not sleeping, not resting, pressed down as if the prairie had claimed her. Her hair had slipped free. Dark strands stuck to her cheek with sweat gone cold. One arm curled tight around a bundle at her chest. The bundle shook. The baby cried into cloth, starving and furious and fading all at once. Cole's breath stalled in his throat. The sound wasn't loud anymore. That was what frightened him. He reached for her and stopped. Instead, he shrugged his coat off in one hard pull and laid it over both of them, the heavy wool falling like a roof. He tucked the edges close without touching her skin, using the back of his sleeve to pull fabric into place, the way he'd once covered a calf in a blizzard. The baby's cry hit the coat and dulled, but it didn't stop. Good. Still fighting. The woman's eyes snapped open. Too bright. Fever bright. Fear bright. She tried to drag herself back, elbows slipping in the frozen grass. Her palm scraped stone and made a raw, tearing sound. Cole stepped back at once. Easy, he said. One word. Low, steady. Ma'am. She stared at him like he was a trick of the cold. Her lips moved. Nothing came out. Cole raised his hands, palms open, and backed another step. His horse shifted behind him, leather creaking. The woman's gaze flicked to the animal, then to the coat, then down to the bundle. The baby cried again. A thin, broken sound. Cole pulled his canteen free and twisted the cap. The water inside was thick with cold, but it was wet. It was something. He tipped a single drop toward the baby's mouth. The woman lunged and slapped the canteen away. It struck a rock and rolled, spilling a thin, dark line into the grass. Her breath came in hard pulls. She coughed, dry and violent. Cole didn't flinch. He reached into his pocket and took out a twist of sugar and a strip of biscuit. He crushed both in his palm, slow, where she could see. He scooped snow into the canteen's mouth, shook it once, twice, and let the melting do what it could. Then he set it down between them and nudged it forward with 2 fingers. "No tricks," he said. "You do it." Her eyes tracked his hands, the scar along his jaw, the missing brass button on his shirt, where the cloth gaped like an old wound. Her fingers, raw, shaking, closed around the canteen. She didn't drink. She tipped it to the baby's lips. The baby latched onto the rim and sucked like it was life itself. Because it was. The cry softened into wet, desperate gulps. Cole watched the baby's chest. Up, down, thin but steady. I should have kept riding. The thought came like a confession whispered into empty church air. Hooves sounded far off. More than one horse. Beneath it, men's voices, careless and sure. The woman heard them too, her body locked. She tried to stand and failed, clutching the baby so tight her arms looked like chains. "Please," she rasped. The word tore free and left blood behind it. "Don't." Another cough swallowed the rest. Cole's head turned toward the ridge. Torchlight winked there, orange and hunting. Not travelers. Travelers didn't ride with torches unless they meant to find something. A voice carried, bored and official. "By order of the court." Another voice laughed. "Judge wants the child tonight." The woman made a sound low in her throat, something broken. Cole didn't ask questions. Questions could wait. The baby couldn't. He slid one arm beneath her shoulders and the other beneath the bundle and lifted both at once, careful not to separate mother from child. She flinched but didn't fight. Fighting burned heat. Fighting burned breath. He swung her up behind the saddle and climbed in front, giving her the only part of his body that could take a bullet first. The baby pressed between them under his coat, warmer now. "Hold on," he said. She didn't answer. She fisted his shirt and clung like the ground was falling away. Cole urged the horse forward, angling off the road and down into the cut where winter runoff had carved a ditch. He rode it low and fast. Hooves rang once on stone, then found dirt. A torch flared behind them. "There!" someone shouted. Cole leaned forward and rode harder. The ditch twisted. Shadows swallowed them. Hooves thundered above, chasing nothing but frost and bad guesses. He didn't look back. He counted turns instead. 1, 2, 3. The ditch opened into scrub and broken timber. A shack crouched there, half buried, roof sagging, door hanging by one hinge. A miner's cabin left to rot. Cole slid down before the horse stopped. He carried the woman the last steps, boots slipping. The door screamed when he shoved it open. Inside smelled of ash and mouse and old pine. Still air. Warmer by mercy alone. He laid her on a pile of ragged blankets. The baby whimpered. Cole split kindling with one strike, sparked flint, fed flame until it caught. Fire pushed back the dark in jerks and fits. The woman's eyes never left him. Cole drew his knife and placed it on the floor between them. Blade turned inward. Then he stepped back. The woman pulled the coat tighter around the baby. Her fingers brushed his cheek. The baby quieted. breath hitching into soft hiccups. Fire cracked. Nothing else moved. Far off, a church bell rang once. Christmas Eve, maybe. Or a dying man. Or nothing at all. Cole saw the raw ring around her wrist where rope had been. Saw the way her eyes kept cutting to the door. He swallowed. "Miss," he said, because respect cost nothing. "You got a name?" Her throat worked. "Clara," she whispered. The baby shifted. A small leather cord slipped into view at his neck, a bit of metal tapping softly beneath the cloth. Outside, a voice cut through the night again, closer now. "Search every shack. The judge wants that child back." Clara's hand crushed the baby to her chest. Cole fed the fire another stick and spoke without looking at her. "They're not taking him." He didn't yet know what that promise would cost, but the cold had already named its price, and the law was riding hard behind it. Morning did not arrive. It only thinned the dark. Gray light seeped through the cracks of the shack, pale and useless, showing the truth without softening it. Frost had crept inside during the night, dusting the dirt floor and turning the blankets stiff at the edges. The fire had sunk to coals, breathing low. Cole Maddox woke sitting upright, back to the wall, boots still on. He hadn't slept so much as surrendered to stillness. His hand rested near the knife on the floor where he had left it. Blade turned inward. The baby breathed. That sound, thin, uneven, alive, was the first thing he listened for. The woman stirred at the blankets. Clara's eyes opened slow this time, not snapping, not wild. Fever still lived in them, but fear had pulled back just enough to make room for calculation. The baby whimpered, mouth rooting against cloth that no longer held milk. Hunger did not wait for daylight. Cole stood without a word, shrugged his coat back on, and stepped outside. The cold hit like a slap, clean and unforgiving. His horse stamped and lifted its head, nostrils rimmed with white. Cole rubbed frost from the saddle horn and swung up. The nearest ranch sat 2 miles east. He rode it hard. By the time he returned, the sky had gone from black to iron. He carried a tin of goat's milk wrapped in burlap, a heel of bread, and a scrap of clean cloth. He said nothing when he set them down inside the shack, just nodded once and stepped back. Clara took the milk. She smelled it first, tasted it. Only then did she tip it to the baby's lips. The baby drank like the night had never ended. Cole watched the baby's hands clench and unclench, watched the way the woman counted under her breath. Small numbers, barely sound, each swallow measured like it mattered. Because it did. Outside, a rider passed on the distant road. Hooves, slow, deliberate. Clara stiffened. Her eyes went to the door. Cole didn't look. He fed the fire instead, careful not to send sparks. Smoke curled low and thin, slipping out through gaps in the boards. "They won't come yet," he said. Not promise. Assessment. She nodded once like she believed him because believing cost less than running. When the baby finished, Clara wrapped him tighter and leaned back against the wall. Her breath rasped when she moved. Cole saw it now, the way each inhale lagged, the way the cold had settled into her chest like debt. He set the bread between them and tore it in half. She took her piece with shaking fingers and ate without looking up. After a while, she spoke. They said he wasn't mine. Her voice was hoarse, scraped thin by the night. Cole waited. They said I wasn't fit. A pause. They said I ran. Another pause. I did. Her hand slid to the baby's neck. The leather cord showed again, the small piece of metal knocking soft against bone. Cole's eyes stayed there a second too long. Who? He asked. She swallowed. The court. One word. Heavy. Final. Cole nodded. He'd heard that word before, spoken from wagons and gallows and clean offices that never smelled like blood. They had paper, she went on. Seals. Signatures. Her mouth twisted. Ink makes lies look like truth. Outside, the wind shifted. Somewhere far off, a dog barked. Cole stood and checked the door. Snow had started to fall now, slow and fine, laying a quiet blanket over tracks he wished would disappear. He didn't tell her what he'd heard on the ridge. He didn't tell her about the voice that said judge like it was a crown. Some truths needed timing. He stepped back inside and set a scrap of paper and a pencil stub on the crate by the wall. If they come, he said, they'll ask questions. She stared at the pencil like it might bite. You write? He asked. Yes. One word. Clean. Then write what you can't say fast. Her hand closed around the pencil. She didn't write yet. The baby stirred and let out a small, tired cry. Clara rocked him, counting again under her breath. Outside, hooves sounded closer this time. Not running, claiming. Cole's jaw tightened. A shadow crossed the crack under the door. A voice followed, young, unsure, trying to sound like something else. Anyone inside? Cole opened the door before the man could knock. Deputy Tom Briggs stood there, hat pulled low, breath fogging. Snow clung to his coat. His eyes flicked past Cole's shoulder, quick and guilty. Morning, Tom said. Cole nodded. Deputy? Tom cleared his throat. Sheriff sent me to check the outlying cabins. Make sure no one's freezing. A lie. Thin. Polite. Cole didn't move aside. Cold does that on its own, he said. Tom shifted his weight. His gaze slid again, caught for a second on the edge of a blanket, the curve of a small body beneath it. Mind if I... Tom started. No, Cole said. Not loud, not angry. Final. Snow fell between them, filling the space where an argument might have been. Tom swallowed. He pulled a folded paper from his coat. Orders, he said, holding it out. Just routine. Cole took the paper. He didn't unfold it. He didn't need to. The seal was there. The ink. Blue-green, darker than the rest. Judge's ink. Something cold settled behind his ribs that had nothing to do with weather. Tom watched his face. Anyone else here? Tom asked. Cole met his eyes. Just me. A breath passed. Long. Measured. Tom nodded once. All right. He hesitated. If you see anyone traveling, you're to report it. Cole handed the paper back without opening it. Tom's hand shook when he took it. When the deputy rode off, Cole shut the door and leaned his forehead against the wood. I carried their papers once. The thought came sharp and unwelcome. He saw himself months back, riding clean roads with envelopes tied neat and official, never asking what they did to the people whose names they carried. He turned. Clara was watching him, now, not afraid, assessing. He placed the paper on the crate, unfolded it, and slid it toward her. She read fast, faster than fear. Her face went still. "They already decided," she said. "Yes." Silence filled the shack again, thicker than before. Cole took a breath and spoke. "We can leave." She looked up and... "Now," he went on. "North, before night." Her hand tightened on the baby. "And then?" she asked. Cole didn't answer right away. "And then they'll keep looking," she said. Not accusation. Fact. "Because his name is on their paper." She lifted the baby's chin and showed Cole the metal on the cord. The letters were small, worn, but clear. "N.H. They took my name first," she said quietly. "I won't let them take his." Cole felt something settle then. A line crossed. A choice made. He took the pencil and pushed it back to her. "Right," he said. She did. Outside, the snow kept falling. Soft, patient. And somewhere beyond it, men with clean ink and cold orders were already turning their horses around. The ranch did not announce itself. It rose out of the snow like something that had learned not to be seen. Cole rode in slow, taking the back line through scrub and fence shadow, cutting across frozen creek beds where tracks shattered and disappeared. The house sat low and square against the land, wood dark with age, windows narrow and cautious. Smoke did not rise from the chimney. Cole hadn't lit a fire there in 3 days. He dismounted and lifted Clara down first, careful, steady. She didn't lean into him. She didn't pull away either. She held the baby close, one arm locked, the other braced against her ribs like she was holding herself together by force. Cole opened the door and stepped aside. "Inside," he said. The room was cold but clean, sparse. A table, 2 chairs, a stove blackened with old use, a small back room half walled off by hanging canvas. Cole moved there first, unlatching the inner bolt from the inside and swinging it open. "For you," he said. "You lock it. I won't." Clara hesitated, then nodded. She stepped past him, eyes cataloging corners, exits, shadows. She set the baby down on the narrow bed and pulled the blanket up to his chin. The baby stirred and quieted again, breath thin but even. Cole set water to heat and laid bread and dried meat on the table. He kept his back turned while she ate. Trust took shape in inches. By midday, the snow had stopped, leaving the land scrubbed bare and white. Cole stepped outside to check the fence line. He moved along it slow, boot by boot, scanning for broken wire, fresh sign. He found tracks, not from last night. These were older, day-old. 2 horses. One man light in the saddle, one heavier. They had circled the property once and moved on. Testing. Cole ground his heel into the print until it vanished. When he came back inside, Clara stood at the table, her coat off now, sleeves rolled. The baby slept against her chest, head tucked under her chin. "You live alone," she said. "Yes." "Why?" Cole shrugged. "Fewer questions." She nodded, like that made sense. She glanced at the stove. You have paper? Cole pulled a ledger from a drawer and set it down. She flipped through it, fingers light, reading entries upside down, dates and figures clean and careful. You write like someone who learned properly, she said. He met her eyes. So do you. Her mouth tightened. I used to. She tore a clean page free and smoothed it flat. She didn't start writing. Not yet. Outside, hooves approached. One rider this time. Slow. Familiar. Cole moved to the door and opened it before the knock came. Deputy Tom Briggs stood there again. Snow melted off his coat now. Hat pushed back like he'd been riding a while. He looked past Cole, eyes sharper this time. Afternoon, Tom said. Deputy? Tom cleared his throat. Sheriff's expanding the search. Judge's orders. Cole waited. Tom held out another paper. This one's different, Hipu said. Asks for cooperation. Cole took it and unfolded it. The ink hit him before the words did. Blue-green. Heavy. The same shade he'd seen a dozen times before on envelopes he'd once carried from town to town, paid in coin that never asked questions. Judge's ink. His hand tightened. Tom watched his face, careful now. Anyone staying with you, Cole? Tom asked. Cole's eyes didn't leave the page. No. Tom nodded, but his gaze drifted to the backroom canvas, just a fraction too long. Judge is worried, Tom said, about the child. Judge worries about paper, Cole said, not children. Tom flinched. You didn't hear that from me. Cole folded the paper slow and handed it back. I heard it from the ink, he said. Tom swallowed. He looked tired now, younger than he'd been an hour ago. I gotta ask, Tom said quietly. Did you carry for him? Cole met his eyes. Yes. The word hung between them like a weight dropped. Tom exhaled. Then you know how this goes. Yes, Cole said. I do. Tom hesitated. If you see her, I won't, Cole said. Tom nodded once. That was all. He turned his horse and rode away. Inside, Clara had not moved. She stood where she was, watching everything through the crack in the canvas. You knew, she said when Cole came back in. Yes. That ink, she went on. You've seen it before. Yes. She held his gaze. There was no accusation in it, only alignment. Two people looking at the same truth from opposite sides. They planned it, she said, before I ran. Yes. She closed her eyes once. When she opened them again, something had changed. The shaking was gone. You can still leave, she said, before this touches you deeper. Cole took a breath. Let it out. It already has. He pulled a chair out and sat. The house settled around them, quiet and listening. We can go north, he said. Outrun paper. For how long, she asked. He didn't answer. She looked down at the baby, brushed a thumb along his cheek. They'll keep coming, she said, because paper hates to lose. Yes. She lifted her eyes again. Then I stopped running. The words landed soft and heavy. Cole leaned forward. Standing costs. I know. She reached for the pencil and finally wrote, not a plea, not a confession, a list. Dates, Places, names, orders spoken, doors closed, a signature copied from memory, exact. Cole watched her hand move. Steady now. Precise. You remember everything, he said. She didn't look up. I had to. Outside, a sound cracked the air. Wood splitting. Cole was on his feet in an instant, moving for the door. Smoke rose from the far edge of the property. Thin. Intentional. A warning fire. Cole grabbed his rifle and turned back. Clara stood there, baby in her arms, paper clutched tight. They're not done, she said. No, Cole answered. They're starting. He crossed the room and took the paper from her, folded it once and slid it inside his coat, into the lining near his ribs where the missing button left a gap. Then so are we, he said. Outside, the smoke thickened, and somewhere beyond the fence line, a match flared blue-green before it burned. The fire never reached the house. That was the message. It burned low along the fence line, licking dry brush just enough to leave black teeth in the snow. By the time Cole stamped it out, the wind had already carried the smoke where it was meant to go, toward town. He stood there a moment after the last ember died, boot heel grinding ash into ice. His breath came slow, measured. He listened past the sound of his own blood. Nothing followed. Not yet. When he turned back inside, the house smelled different. Smoke clung to wool and wood and skin. Clara noticed it too. She lifted her head from where she sat and looked at him without asking. They wanted you to see, she said. Yes. And for you to know they can reach here. Yes. The baby stirred at the sound of Cole's boots and let out a small, cracked cry. Clara shifted him higher against her chest, rocking without thinking. The rhythm was older than words. Cole poured water into the basin and scrubbed soot from his hands. The black came away slow, like it didn't want to let go. He caught sight of the paper inside his coat when he reached for a cloth. The folded edge pressed against his ribs, warm now from his body. Truth was a strange thing. Once it touched skin, it didn't stay cold. A knock came at the door. Not loud, not polite, certain. Cole's hand went to the rifle by the wall. He didn't lift it. He crossed the room and opened the door. Mabel Rourke stood there with a basket hooked over her arm, shawl pulled tight, eyes sharp as nails. Snow clung to her skirts. I saw the smoke, she said, stepping past him without waiting. And I smelled lies on the wind. She stopped short when she saw Clara. The two women looked at each other for a long second. Then Mabel's gaze dropped to the baby. Oh, she said, softer now. There you are. Clara's shoulders tensed, but she didn't move back. She held the baby like a line drawn in the dirt. Mabel set her basket down and reached inside, pulling free clean cloth, dried herbs, a small glass vial. I'm not here for gossip, she said. I'm here because that child's breathing isn't right. She looked at Cole. And because fires don't start themselves in winter. Cole stepped aside. Mabel knelt in front of Clara, movements careful, deliberate. She didn't ask permission. She waited until Clara nodded. She listened to the baby's chest, counted breaths on her fingers, pressed 2 fingers gentle against the small ribs. Hunger, she said. Cold, and fear sitting where milk should be. She glanced at Clara's face, at the hollow beneath her eyes. And you, Mabel added, you've been held too tight for too long. Clara stiffened. Mabel didn't look away. She reached for Clara's wrist and turned it just enough for the light to catch the skin. The mark was faint now, but not gone. A pale ring, uneven. Rope remembered even when people tried not to. Mabel inhaled once, slow. How many times? She asked. Clara didn't answer. She only looked at the door, as if expecting it to open and prove her right. Mabel didn't push. I know that mark, she said instead. I've seen it before. Clara's head snapped back. On women who stopped coming to church, Mabel went on. On women who got sent east with no goodbye. Her jaw set. On women who were said to be unfit. The word hung there, rotten. Clara's hand shook. She tightened her grip on the baby. Cole stayed where he was. He didn't interrupt. This wasn't his ground. Mabel stood and faced him. You didn't start this, she said. But you're in it now. Yes, she nodded. Good. She turned back to Clara and lowered her voice. If you want to run, Mabel said, I won't stop you. But if you want to stand, you'll need more than breath and memory. Clara swallowed. I have paper. Mabel's eyes flicked to Cole's coat. Yes, Mabel said. You do. Outside, another rider passed. This one didn't slow. Clara flinched. The baby cried. Mabel reached into her basket and handed Clara a clean cloth soaked with something sharp and green-smelling. For his chest, she said, and yours. Clara took it. Thank you. The words came out raw, unused. Mabel packed her basket and stood. I'll speak, she said, when the time comes. Clara looked up. They'll come for you. Mabel smiled without humor. They already have. When she left, the house felt smaller. Cole barred the door and fed the stove. The fire caught quick this time, snapping and loud. Clara sat at the table now, the baby laid down in a nest of blankets beside her. She smoothed the paper she'd written earlier and added to it, pencil scratching steady. Cole watched the pencil more than her face. You remember names, he said. Yes. You remember dates. Yes. You remember who stood by. She paused. And who didn't? Cole nodded. Outside, dusk crept in early, heavy with cloud. Snow began again, thicker now, muting the world. A stone struck the side of the house. Not hard, deliberate. Then another. Cole moved to the window and looked out through a crack in the shutter. 3 men stood near the fence, hats low, hands loose. One spat into the snow. Give the child back, one of them called. Judge don't like waiting. Clara stood behind Cole. He felt her there without turning. We don't have him, Cole said. A laugh answered him. You do, the man said, and you don't. Another stone hit the wall, harder this time. Wood thudded. Clara took a step forward. Don't, Cole said quietly. She stopped. The men lingered a moment longer, then mounted and rode off, laughter trailing behind them like a dare. When the sound faded, Clara's breath came out in a long rush. They'll keep coming, she said. Yes, because the law's on their side. Cole turned then, looked at her full on. No, he said, because the law's scared. She frowned. Paper doesn't chase, he went on. Men do. She looked down at the baby, then back at the paper. Then I make the paper speak, she said. Cole crossed the room and pulled a small tin box from beneath the bed. Inside were old receipts, deeds, letters tied with string. He set it on the table. Add to it, he said. Make it heavier. She did. Night settled in full. The wind rose. Somewhere far off, a bell rang again, thin and unsure. Clara paused mid-sentence, pencil hovering. Do you believe? She asked suddenly. In what? She glanced toward the sound. That bell. Cole thought of cold nights and empty rooms, of promises made and broken. I believe, he said slowly, that light gets noticed in the dark. She nodded once and kept writing. The baby slept on, breathing steady, unaware of ink and fire and men who wanted him returned like property. Outside, the snow buried the fence line where the warning fire had burned. But ash had a way of rising back up. It always did. The summons arrived folded neat and bloodless, tucked under a stone at the edge of the porch like an offering no one wanted to touch. Cole saw it before he saw the rider who left it. He'd been splitting wood, breath fogging, hands already numb. Paper didn't belong in places like this. That alone made it dangerous. He picked it up with 2 fingers. Blue-green ink bled through the fold. Judge's hand. Inside the house, Clara felt the change before she saw the paper. The baby stirred against her chest, restless, sensing the shift the way animals did. She stood when Cole came in, eyes already on the envelope. They've decided, she said. Yes. He set the paper on the table and stepped back. She unfolded it herself. Her eyes moved fast, trained, the way they had when she read at night by borrowed lamps in a life that felt like someone else's. She didn't curse. She didn't cry. She nodded. They're calling me in, she said, for vagrancy, for abduction. A breath. For the child. Cole leaned his hip against the stove. They want him first. She looked up. They always do. Outside, a wagon rattled past on the far road. Someone laughed. Life went on, careless and loud, like the land hadn't already chosen sides. Mabel Rourke arrived before noon, face set, basket absent this time. She didn't sit. They're moving quick, she said. Judge is afraid of winter and witnesses. Clara folded the summons again, smaller, tighter. If I don't go, they'll come here. Yes, Mabel said, and they won't ask. Silence filled the room. The stove ticked. The baby sucked his thumb and made a small sound, half dream, half hunger. Cole spoke first. I can hide you. Mabel shook her head. Hiding concedes. Clara looked at the baby's face, at the faint crease between his brows that never smoothed even in sleep. If I go, she said, they'll take him. Yes, Mabel said again, unless you don't go alone. Cole straightened. Mabel met his eyes. Paper respects paper, she said, not mercy. Clara's hand tightened around the folded summons. What are you saying? Mabel exhaled. That the court listens different when a woman has a name tied to a man's. The words settled heavy. Marriage had a way of doing that, making itself sound like shelter when it was really a wall. Clara turned to Cole. She searched his face the way she searched exits, fast, precise, without apology. "I won't drag you into this," she said. Cole didn't answer right away. He looked down at the floor, at the place where the knife still lay at night. Blade turned inward, at the fire-blackened boards, where a warning had already been written in ash. "They already dragged me," he said. Mabel nodded once. "You don't have to like it. You just have to decide." Outside, hooves approached again, slower than before, official. Cole opened the door. Judge Silas Ketteridge stepped down from a polished wagon that didn't belong on frozen ground. He wore a clean coat, gloves pale as bone, his ring catching what little light there was. He smiled like a man visiting a sick parishioner. "Mr. Maddox," he said, "and you must be Clara." Her name on his tongue sounded like theft. She didn't answer. "I've come to spare us all trouble," the judge went on, voice smooth, measured. "The court is prepared to show leniency." "For what?" Cole asked. The judge turned his attention to him, eyes cool. "For confusion, for unfortunate circumstance." A glance toward the baby. "For misguided attachment." Clara stepped forward then, just enough to be seen. "My son is not misplaced," she said. Her voice shook once, then steadied. "You are." The judge smiled wider. "A mother's passion is understandable." He held out the summons. "But the law requires order." Mabel spoke. "The law requires truth." The judge's eyes flicked to her, sharp now. "Mrs. Rourke, midwifery suits you better than legal opinion." She didn't back down. "I know marks when I see them." The judge's smile thinned. "Be careful." He turned back to Clara. "If you cooperate," he said softly, "this can end quietly. The child will be cared for. You will be free to begin again." Clara's breath caught. Free. The word was bait. "And if I don't?" she asked. The judge's gaze hardened. "Then the court will enforce its guardianship." He stepped back toward the wagon. "You have until morning." When he left, the house felt colder. Clara sank into a chair. Her hands shook now. Not fear. Fury held too long. "They speak like he's furniture," she said. Cole stood behind her, hands on the chair back, grounding her without touching. "They speak like they own ink," he said. Night came early again. Snow piled against the door. Cole fed the stove and checked the rifle twice. They ate little. Later, when the baby slept, Clara stood and went to the basin. She washed her hands slow, as if preparing for something sacred and dangerous. She turned. "If we do this," she said, "it's a shield, not a promise." Cole met her eyes. "I know." "And if we win," she went on, "you don't owe me more than that." He nodded. "I know." "And if we lose," he cut her off, "then we lose standing." Mabel stood by the door, listening like a sentry. She cleared her throat. "I can perform the words," she said. "As witness. Asa will sign if pressed." Clara closed her eyes, opened them. "Tonight," she said. The ceremony took place in the kitchen, by firelight and breath. No dress, no ring worth mention, just an old iron band Cole kept in a tin with letters that no longer had addresses. Mabel spoke plain words, promises clipped to necessity. Clara answered steady. Cole answered once. The baby stirred and let out a small cry, then settled again when Clara pressed her, cheek to his hair. When it was done, nothing looked different. That was the point. Morning broke gray and brittle. Cole saddled the horse. Clara wrapped the baby tight and pulled on her coat, shoulders squared. Mabel pressed a folded paper into Clara's hand. "For the clerk," she said, "and for courage." The courthouse loomed like a box set on the land, square and watching. People gathered, drawn by rumor and the promise of spectacle. Judge Ketteridge sat high, composed. Clara walked in with Cole at her side. She did not lower her eyes. The clerk called her name, then corrected himself, flustered. "Mrs. Maddox," he said. The room shifted, small, almost invisible. Judge Ketteridge's smile froze. Clara placed the baby down in her lap and stood. "I am here," she said, "to answer." The judge leaned forward. "Very well," he said. "Let us begin." Outside, a bell rang. Not loud, not strong, but it rang. And the child's name, written small on a scrap of metal, rested warm against his chest, waiting for the law to notice it was not alone. The court recessed before noon. Not because justice had been served, but because the room could no longer pretend it was quiet. People spilled out onto the steps in small knots, voices low, faces tight. No one wanted to be the first to be seen choosing a side. Snow drifted down in soft flakes, settling on hats and shoulders like a blessing that asked nothing. Clara stepped into the cold with the baby held high against her chest. She didn't look back. She didn't need to. She could feel the weight of the room still pressing between her shoulder blades, the way eyes followed until distance gave permission to breathe. Cole walked half a step ahead, not leading, not shielding, just there. Behind them, Judge Ketteridge remained seated. He hadn't spoken when the clerk corrected the name. He hadn't needed to. His silence had teeth. They rode out slow, taking the long road home. The baby slept through it, mouth slack, breath warm against Clara's throat. Snow muted the world, turning hoofbeats into memory. At the ranch, Cole unsaddled and hung tack without hurry. Routine mattered. It told the body the ground was still solid. Clara carried the baby inside and laid him down in the back room. She tucked the blanket close, counted breaths without realizing she was doing it. 1, 2, 3. Alive. She came back to the kitchen and sat at the table. Her hands lay flat, palms down, as if she were waiting to be told where to place them. Mabel arrived an hour later, cheeks red from wind, eyes already scanning for damage. "They didn't take him," she said. "Not today," Cole answered. Mabel nodded. "That's how they lose patience." She set a bundle of papers on the table. Certificates, affidavits, copies, paper against paper, weight against weight. "You bought time," she said to Clara. "Time is the most expensive thing." Clara folded one of the papers open. Her new name stared back at her, clean and official. "It feels like a lie," she said. Mabel shook her head. "It's a shield. Shields don't have to be true. They just have to hold." Outside, a rider passed, then another. Cole moved to the window and watched them go by without slowing. No torches, no shouting, just presence. "They're counting," he said. That afternoon, Clara reorganized the house. She moved deliberately, choosing where things belonged as if order itself were a form of defense. She lined up jars. She stacked wood by size. She took Cole's ledger and added her own pages. Dates, names, times, routes ridden. When she finished, she slid the book back into its place and closed the drawer. "This is how I stay," she said quietly. Cole nodded. At dusk, Asa Pike came by with a sack of flour and eyes that wouldn't quite meet theirs. "I won't be long," he said. "No need," Cole replied. Asa set the sack down. "People are talking." "They always are," Clara said. Asa swallowed. "Some think the judge has been embarrassed. That's dangerous," Cole said. Asa nodded. "That's why I came." He hesitated, then added, "Christmas Eve service is tomorrow. Folks will be watching who sits where." Clara understood. Church was a map. Attendance marked allegiance. "I'll come," she said. Asa looked surprised. "You don't have to." "I know," she said. "That's why I will." Night fell heavy and still. The stove burned low. Cole checked the doors twice and then once more. Clara lay awake in the back room, the baby curled against her. She listened to the house breathe. Wood settling, wind brushing the walls. "Don't sleep too deep," she told herself. A sound came, soft, deliberate, a footstep on the porch. Cole was up before the knock. He didn't light the lamp. He moved to the door and opened it just enough to see. A man stood there, hat low, hands empty. He smiled like someone practiced at being harmless. "Evening," the man said. "Name's Foster. Judge sent me." Cole didn't answer. Foster glanced past him, eyes flicking toward the back room. "Just wanted to say there's a way through this that doesn't end messy." Cole held the door. "Judge respects arrangements," Foster went on. "Papers can change hands. Guardianships can be adjusted." Clara appeared in the doorway behind Cole. She didn't speak. She let the man see the baby's face in the low light. Foster's smile tightened. "That child deserves stability," he said. "He has it," Clara replied. Foster shrugged. "Suit yourselves." He stepped back into the dark. When the door closed, Clara's knees shook. She sat hard in the nearest chair and pressed her palm to the table. "They're offering me freedom," she said. "They're offering silence," Cole answered. She nodded. "Same thing, different price." Snow fell again in the night. Heavier this time. It covered tracks, softened edges. By morning, the ranch looked almost peaceful. Clara dressed for church in the cleanest clothes she had. She brushed her hair until it shone, then tied it back tight. She wrapped the baby and pinned the cord with the small metal charm beneath his shirt, hidden but there. At the church, heads turned. Whispers moved faster than prayer. Clara sat near the aisle. Cole sat beside her. The baby slept. Judge Ketteridge entered last. He took his seat 2 rows ahead, posture perfect. He did not look back. The service began. Words of peace filled the air, spoken like habit. Clara listened with her eyes open. When the hymn rose, she sang. Her voice was thin. It held. After, people filed out slow. Some nodded, some didn't. A few stopped to touch the baby's foot, quick and guilty. Outside, Judge Ketteridge paused near the steps. He turned at last. "Enjoy the holiday," he said pleasantly. "We will," Clara answered. His gaze slid to the baby. "It won't last." Clara didn't reply. Back at the ranch, Cole found wire cut along the far fence. Clean, intentional. "They're testing again," he said. Clara knelt in the dirt and traced the cut with her finger. "They think time will wear us down." "It does," Cole said. She looked up. "Not if we use it." That night, she wrote again. She wrote until her hand cramped. She wrote until the baby woke and slept and woke again. Outside, the wind rose, and somewhere in town, paper changed hands, quiet as sin, while a judge planned his next move. Inside the ranch, a family learned the shape of a peace that knew it would not be allowed to stay. The first thing to go quiet was the road. No wagons, no passing riders. The prairie lay open and empty. Snow spread smooth as if nothing had ever crossed it. Silence like that never meant peace. It meant someone had decided to wait. Cole noticed it before noon. He stood at the fence with wire in one hand and pliers in the other, watching a hawk circle high and alone. "They've pulled back," he said. Clara stood a few steps behind him, with the baby bundled against her chest. She followed his gaze, then nodded once. "That's worse," she said. "Yes." They spent the morning tightening what could be tightened. Cole set low wire bells along the tree line, not enough to be seen, just enough to speak if someone crossed where they shouldn't. He moved the ladder from the barn to the far shed, closed off the easy climb to the roof. He stacked firewood tight against the north wall where wind cut hardest. Clara worked inside, but not quietly. She shifted furniture, clearing lines of sight from the back room to the kitchen, from the table to the door. She placed the ledger where it could be reached in one step, the tin box beneath it. She counted candles and matches and hid half where only she would remember. Order was a kind of prayer. The baby fussed mid-morning, thin and sharp. Clara sat and fed him, humming under her breath. Not a song, just a pattern. Her eyes stayed on the window. A figure appeared at the far fence. Clara's hum faltered. Cole's hand went still on the pliers. The figure didn't come closer. He leaned against the post and waited, hat low, shoulders loose. He stayed there long enough to be seen, not long enough to be confronted. Then he turned and walked away. A message delivered. "That wasn't a threat," Clara said. "No," Cole agreed. "That was a count." Of what? She didn't ask. She already knew. By afternoon, the wind picked up, carrying the smell of snow and something else. Smoke from town, faint but present. Clara wrapped the baby and stepped outside, breathing it in like it might tell her something. Church bells rang once, then stopped. Cole came up beside her. "They're meeting." She looked at him. "Without us?" "Yes." They went back inside. Clara sat at the table and opened the ledger again. She didn't write names this time. She drew lines, routes, distances, times between places. She marked the creek beds and the low cuts where tracks vanished. She marked the church, the court, the livery. Cole watched over her shoulder. "You're planning movement," he said. "I'm planning witnesses," she answered. Late in the afternoon, a knock came. Not heavy. Careful. Cole opened the door to find a girl standing there, cheeks red with cold, eyes too old for her face. She wore a plain coat and gloves with a torn seam she kept worrying with her thumb. "Is this the Maddox place?" she asked. "Yes," she swallowed. "I'm Lena." The name landed like a dropped plate. Clara appeared behind Cole. The girl's eyes flicked to the baby, then back up, conflicted. "My father said I shouldn't come," Lena said. "So I did." Cole stepped aside. Lena entered slowly, like she expected the floor to give way. She kept her hands visible, empty. "I don't have much time," she said. "He watches." Clara nodded. "Then say only what you can." Lena took a breath. "There's a drawer in his office. Bottom right. It sticks." She winced. "That's where he keeps copies, not the clean ones." Clara's fingers tightened around the baby. "Copies of what?" Cole asked. "Guardianships," Lena said. "Orders. One signed before people ever stand in front of him." Her voice shook. "He says it's efficiency." Silence filled the room, thick and dangerous. "Why tell us?" Clara asked. Lena's eyes glistened. "Because I heard him last night, talking about the baby, about making an example." She looked down. "I don't want to be that kind of example." Cole held her gaze. "If you leave here, they'll watch you." "They already do," Lena said. "That's not new." She turned to Clara. "If you take them, take only what proves it. Don't burn anything. Don't break anything." "Why?" Clara asked. "Because if it looks stolen, it disappears," Lena said. "If it looks untouched, it stays." She stepped back toward the door. "I didn't come," she said. "I was never here." Cole nodded. When she was gone, Clara sat heavily. "She risked everything," she said. "Yes," Cole answered. "And she didn't ask for thanks." They didn't speak for a long time after that. At dusk, snow began again, thicker, louder. The bells along the tree line chimed once, soft, almost gentle. Cole froze. Then another bell, farther left. He grabbed the rifle and moved to the window. Shadows slid between the trees, slow and deliberate. "They're probing," he said. Clara stood, the baby tucked tight against her. She didn't panic. She breathed. 1, 2, 3. A branch snapped. Cole stepped out onto the porch, rifle lowered but ready. "Enough," he called. Not loud, clear. The shadows stopped. A voice answered from the dark. "Judge just wants cooperation." "Then he can ask in daylight," Cole said. A laugh followed, short and ugly. "Won't be long now," the voice said. "Paper's patient." The shadows withdrew. Inside, Clara's knees finally gave. She sat on the floor and pressed her forehead to the baby's head. "They won't stop," she said. "No," Cole replied. "They'll escalate." She looked up at him. "Then we move first." He hesitated. "That drawer is the only thing heavier than their ink," she finished. Silence. Finally, he nodded. "Tomorrow night." She closed her eyes once. Tomorrow night. They prepared without speaking much after that. Cole cleaned his rifle and then put it away, choosing a knife instead. Clara packed cloth and twine, folded small and precise. She kissed the baby's hair and whispered something Cole didn't catch. It sounded like a promise she was making to herself. Night came down hard. Wind rattled the shutters. Snow pressed against the walls like a crowd. Clara lay awake, listening to the house breathe, the baby warm against her chest. Don't sleep too deep. She didn't. Outside, far beyond the ranch, lights burned late in the courthouse. A drawer stuck in its track, waiting to be opened. And somewhere between ink and blood, the thin shield they'd raised began to tremble under the weight of what was coming. The town did not sleep. It pretended to. Light leaked from windows that should have gone dark hours earlier. Snow fell in a fine, obedient curtain, softening edges, swallowing sound. The kind of night that forgave nothing. Cole and Clara rode in from the west, slow and ordinary, like people who belonged to the dark. He wore his hat low. She kept her head down, baby bound tight beneath her coat, breath warm against her collarbone. They left the horse behind the livery, reins loose, tack plain. No hurry. Hurry noticed itself. The courthouse rose at the end of the street, square and pale, its windows dark except for one on the second floor. That light burned steady, waiting. They crossed the street without speaking. The door at the side stuck the way Lena had said it would. Cole pressed his shoulder in once, twice. The wood sighed and gave. Inside, the air smelled of dust and old paper and oil. Cold, but not as cold as outside. Clara closed the door behind them and stood still, counting her breath until her hands stopped shaking. 1, 2, 3. Cole moved first. Not fast, not slow. Each step chosen. They passed the clerk's desk, the benches, the empty rail where hands usually rested when lies were told under oath. Clara's eyes didn't linger. She'd seen all of this before from the other side. A sound scraped behind them. Footsteps. Cole lifted one finger. Clara froze. A boy stepped out from behind the stairs, thin as a fence post, eyes wide, mouth full of apology he hadn't learned how to speak yet. Elias Mercer. Eel. The court runner. He held a stack of ledgers against his chest like armor. I didn't hear you come in, he whispered. Cole didn't answer. He studied the boy's hands, ink-stained, quick. Clara stepped forward just enough to be seen. She didn't smile. Are you hungry? She asked. The boy's throat bobbed. She reached into her coat and pulled out a heel of bread wrapped in cloth. She held it out. He took it like a secret and chewed too fast. I gotta finish these, he said, nodding at the ledgers. Judge don't like things left open. Where's he at? Cole asked. The boy jerked his head toward the stairs. Office. Bottom drawer's been sticking all day. Clara felt the room tilt, just a fraction. Did you see anyone come in? She asked. The boy shook his head. Only you. She nodded. Then you didn't see us either. The boy hesitated, then nodded back, crumbs on his lip. They moved past him. Up the stairs, the light grew sharper. Cole counted steps. 7, 8, 9. The office door stood closed. No lock. Judge trusted paper more than wood. Cole opened it. The room was neat in the way a man kept things he thought would never be questioned. Desk polished. Books aligned. A small stove burning low. The drawer stuck. Clara knelt and pulled. It resisted. She wiggled it free with care, breath held. Inside lay folders, thick, labeled in the same clean hand. She lifted the de first. Guardianship order. Hail, Noah. Her fingers went numb. She didn't read it all. She didn't have to. The seal was wrong. The date predated the hearing. The signature pressed too deep, as if practiced. Another folder. Another name. Then another. Not just one child. A system. Cole stood watch at the door, listening to the building breathe. His jaw tightened with every file Clara slipped free. She took only what she needed. One folder for Noah. One that showed the pattern. One with a signature she recognized from her ledger. Someone who had shaken her hand in church. She replaced the rest, closed the drawer, pressed it shut until it stuck again, as if untouched. A sound echoed from below. Voices. Cole turned. Now! They moved fast but not loud down the stairs through the hall. Snowlight spilled in when the side door opened. They almost made it. A bottle shattered somewhere near the clerk's desk. Ink spilled blue-green, bleeding across wood like a wound. "Hey!" a voice shouted. They ran. Clara's breath tore. The baby stirred, made a small sound, then went quiet again when she pressed her cheek to his head. Outside, the snow swallowed their steps for half a second, then hooves pounded. Cole grabbed her arm and pulled her into the shadow behind the church, where the wall blocked the moon. They crouched there, pressed tight to cold stone. A rider tore past, lantern swinging, light slicing the dark. Clara's heart hammered so loud, she was sure it would give them away. "Please." The word wasn't prayer. It was instinct. The rider passed. Then another. Silence rushed back in, thick and ringing. They didn't move until Cole counted to 20. They slipped away through the alley, then the yard, then the open field where snow hid everything and nothing. Back at the ranch, the fire burned low. Cole barred the door and leaned his forehead against it for a moment before turning. Clara set the baby down and laid the folders on the table. She opened the first one with hands that no longer shook. "They wrote it before he was born," she said. Cole looked at the dates. "They sold signatures," she went on. "Bought silence." Her voice didn't break. It hardened. Outside, a sound carried on the wind. Laughter, distant and ugly. Cole folded the papers and slid them into his coat, into the lining where the missing button left room. "They'll come," he said. "Yes," she answered, "and now they'll come hard." Morning brought no peace. By noon, word had spread. People avoided the ranch road. The church bells stayed silent. Smoke rose from town, thicker than before. At dusk, a wagon pulled up fast. Judge Ketteridge stepped down, coat open, eyes bright with something that wasn't calm. He didn't smile this time. "You broke into my office," he said, standing in the snow like he owned it. Clara came to the door with the baby in her arms. She didn't hide him. "No," she said. "You broke into our lives." His gaze snapped to the child. "That boy belongs under my protection." "Then protect him," she said. "From you." His hand curled into a fist. "You think paper saves you?" he asked. She held his gaze. "It exposes you." The judge laughed, sharp and sudden. "Careful," he said. "Paper cuts." He turned and left without another word. That night, Clara didn't sleep. She sat at the table, baby against her chest, watching the door, listening to the wind push against the house like a crowd that hadn't decided how violent it wanted to be. Outside, far beyond the fence line, a match flared. Then another. Then another. The thin shield they had raised, ink, truth, witness, held for the moment. But the night had learned their names, and it was no longer pretending. The fire started at the barn. Not fast, not loud, deliberate. Cole smelled it before he saw it. The bitter curl of smoke slipping through the cracks like a lie that had learned how to breathe. He was on his feet before the first beam caught, boots already moving, hands reaching for water that wouldn't be enough. Outside, flame climbed the dry wood in quiet tongues, orange against snow. Someone had stacked kindling where it didn't belong. Someone had planned this. Clara was at the door with the baby wrapped tight, eyes taking in the shape of the blaze, the wind, the distance to the house. "They want you outside," she said. "Yes," Cole answered. "And you inside." He ran anyway. Snow hissed when he threw it, steam rising, fire laughing back. The roof groaned. A beam collapsed inward with a sound like a bone snapping clean. From the tree line, a figure watched. Cole saw him when the man stepped forward just enough to be known. Hat low, hands loose. No hurry. "Should have taken the offer," the man called. Cole didn't answer. He worked until the fire slowed, until the barn stood blackened and gutted, alive only in places he couldn't reach. By the time he turned back, the man was gone. The message stayed. Inside the house, Clara sat on the floor, back to the wall, baby pressed to her chest. She counted breaths until Cole came in and barred the door behind him. The baby cried then, sharp, startled by smoke and heat and fear. Clara rocked him hard, whispering words that weren't meant to be understood, only felt. Cole poured water into a basin and scrubbed soot from his hands. The black stayed in the lines of his skin. "They'll burn everything," Clara said. "Yes." "Then we stop waiting." She stood, steady now, and crossed to the table. She took the papers from Cole's coat and spread them out like a map of sin. "They won't listen to me," she said. "Not alone." Cole watched her face change as she spoke. The hunted look was gone. In its place sat something sharper. "They'll listen to their own names," she went on. Morning came gray and hard. Snow fell again, thick enough to quiet even smoke. Clara dressed in her cleanest clothes. She brushed her hair and tied it back tight. She wrapped the baby and tucked the leather cord beneath his shirt. Hidden, but there. Cole saddled the horse. They rode for town without taking the back way. People saw them coming. Whispers rose and fell as Clara dismounted in front of the courthouse. Baby in her arms, Cole at her side. Doors opened. Faces appeared in windows. Judge Ketteridge stood on the steps before the clerk could announce anything. He hadn't expected daylight. "You're bold," he said. "I'm done," Clara replied. She walked past him and into the building. Cole followed. The courtroom filled fast, not because it was called, but because people sensed a reckoning the way animals sensed storms. Clara stood at the rail and set the papers down. "These are copies," she said, "kept in your drawer." Murmurs rippled. Judge Ketteridge raised a hand. "This court does not recognize stolen. These are signed." Clara interrupted. By you, by them. She turned and read names aloud. Each one landed like a dropped plate. A rancher, a shopkeeper, a church elder, faces drained color. They were signed before hearings, she went on, before mothers were heard, before children were born. Judge Ketteridge's voice sharpened. Enough. Clara looked at him then, really looked. You taught me how paper works, she said. You just didn't think I'd learn. He stood. Remove her. No one moved. Deputy Tom Briggs stood near the wall, hands at his sides, face pale. He looked at the papers, then on at the baby. Then he stepped forward. Judge, he said, I need to see those. Ketteridge's eyes burned. You will stand down. Tom didn't. He took the papers. He read. He swallowed. These dates, he began. Clara didn't let him finish. She lifted the baby's shirt just enough for the cord to show. The metal caught the light. This was on him when he was taken, she said. Your office tried to file it as evidence. A murmur swelled. Someone crossed themselves. Judge Ketteridge slammed his palm on the bench. This is a farce. It's a pattern, Clara said, and patterns are hard to unsee. For a moment it looked like the room might tear itself apart. Voices rose, accusations flew. People looked at each other like strangers. Then Judge Ketteridge smiled. It was not kind. You think this ends here? He said softly. Paper can be burned. Clara met his gaze. Not once it's been read. He turned and walked out. The room breathed again. Tom Briggs stood frozen, papers in his hands. What do we do? He asked. Clara's voice was steady. You do your job. By dusk, the town was split clean down the middle. Some doors closed, others opened. At the ranch, Clara sat at the table again, writing. Cole repaired what could be repaired. The barn would never be the same. That night, the wind carried hoofbeats close. Cole reached for his rifle. Before he could lift it, the door burst inward. Judge Ketteridge stood there, no coat now, eyes wild, snow melting into his hair. Behind him, two men waited, hands dark with soot. You've made a mess, he said. Clara didn't step back. You don't own him, she said. Ketteridge laughed, high and sharp. I own the law. He lunged. Cole moved, but not fast enough. Hands grabbed Clara. The baby cried, loud and terrified. The cord snapped. The small metal piece fell and skidded across the floor, ringing once. That sound stopped everything. Clara broke free like something unchained. She didn't scream, she didn't beg. She struck, not with her fists, with her weight, her knees, her will. She drove Ketteridge backward into the table, papers scattering like birds. Cole hit the other men hard, wood cracking, breath leaving bodies in ugly sounds. When it ended, Judge Ketteridge lay on the floor, wrists bound in twine, face pressed to dirt. The baby cried until Clara held him again. Outside, voices rose, neighbors drawn by noise, by fear, by the need to see. Cole dragged Ketteridge to the porch and sat him down in the snow. You'll answer, he said. Ketteridge spat blood and smiled anyway. This town will eat you alive. Clara stepped forward, baby in her arms, hair loose, eyes burning. Then let them watch, she said. The bell rang. Not once, Not twice, 3 times. People came running, and for the first time Judge Ketteridge looked small. They tied Judge Ketteridge to the porch rail because there was nowhere else to put him. Snow fell steady, clean, indifferent. It settled on his shoulders and melted into his collar, darkening the fine wool. His wrists were bound tight, twine biting into pale skin. He did not ask to be untied. He stared at the yard like it was something he meant to own again. People gathered in a half-circle, drawn by the bell and the sound of doors opening all at once. Boots crunched, coats brushed. Breath rose and hung like questions no one wanted to speak first. Clara stood at the threshold with the baby held close. She did not step into the yard. She did not hide behind the door. She stood where the light from the house cut her cleanly in half, 1 foot in warmth, 1 in cold. Deputy Tom Briggs arrived last, breathless, hat crooked, eyes wide as if he'd run the whole way from town. He took in the scene and stopped. "What happened?" he asked. Cole didn't answer. He didn't need to. Tom looked at the judge, then at the twine, then at the baby. "Sir," Tom said, voice unsure now. "You're under, Ketteridge lifted his head. "You will untie me." The words carried the weight of habit. They landed and waited. Tom swallowed. He did not move. Clara stepped forward 1 pace. The baby shifted and made a small sound. Not a cry, just a reminder. "There will be a hearing," she said. "Now." Ketteridge laughed. It came out wet and sharp. "In a barnyard?" "In daylight," she replied. "With witnesses." She looked around the faces in the snow. "All of you." Murmurs rippled. Someone crossed themselves. Someone else stepped back. "This is unlawful," Ketteridge said. "You are kidnapping an officer of the court." Tom's jaw tightened. "Sir," he said again, steadier now, "I need to see your orders." Ketteridge's eyes flicked to him. "You've seen enough." Tom didn't look away. Not yet. Cole moved to the rail and pulled the folded papers from his coat. He held them out. Tom took them with hands that shook only a little. The blue-green ink glared even in the gray. Tom read. He stopped. He read again. "These dates," he looked up, "they don't match the filings." Ketteridge leaned back against the rail, smiling thin. "Clerical error." Clara's voice cut through. "Then read the signatures." Tom did. Names fell into the snow, heavy as stones. People flinched when they heard their own. "This isn't a hearing," Ketteridge said softly. "It's a lynching." Clara took another step forward. She was close enough now that he could see the red at the rims of her eyes, the steadiness beneath it. "No," she said. "A lynching happens when the truth is hidden." She turned to Tom. "You asked what happened. He tried to take my child. Again." The baby fussed, sensing the tension. Clara rocked him once, twice. He quieted. Tom closed the papers and held them tight to his chest. "Sir," he said to the judge, "I'm placing you under temporary detention, pending review." Ketteridge's smile vanished. "You don't have that authority," he snapped. Tom lifted his chin. "I do when a child's safety is involved." A gust of wind swept the yard. Snow skittered over boots and hems. Ketteridge tested the twine once, hard. It held. "Untie me," he said to Cole. Cole didn't answer. They moved the hearing into the house because the cold was starting to bite fingers numb and make people stupid. Chairs scraped. The stove roared. Wet wool steamed. Kettridge sat on a straight-backed chair, wrists still bound. No bench, no gavel, no height. Clara sat opposite him, baby in her lap. Cole stood behind her. Mabel stood near the stove, arms folded, eyes sharp. Tom took the table. He laid the papers out one by one, aligning corners like it mattered. "Start at the beginning," Tom said. Clara did. She did not speak of feelings. She spoke of doors closed, of dates, of hands that held too tight, of a room with no windows and a man who said he was helping. Mabel spoke next. Of marks she'd seen, of births that had ended with empty arms and no names, of ledgers that stopped abruptly. Others spoke when their names were read. Some denied. Some cried. One man left without a word. Kettridge listened with his head tilted, eyes narrowed. When it was his turn, he leaned forward as far as the twine allowed. "You are all forgetting something," he said. "Order." His gaze swept the room. This town exists because of order, because someone made decisions when others couldn't. Clara met his eyes. "You made decisions for yourself." A man near the wall spoke up. "Is it true you signed before hearings?" Kettridge's jaw set. "I acted in the best interest of the child." "Which one?" Clara asked. Silence answered. Outside, a horse screamed, a high, sudden sound. Then another. Cole moved to the window. Men rode in from the north road. Not deputies, not townsmen. Their coats were dark. Their hands were loose. "They're here," Cole said. Kettridge smiled again. "I told you paper was patient." The first shot cracked the air and shattered a window. Glass sprayed. Someone screamed. Cole shoved the table aside and dragged Kettridge down behind it. Mabel pulled Clara and the baby to the floor. Gunfire barked from outside. Wood splintered. A bullet tore through the doorframe and buried itself in the wall. Tom crawled to the door and kicked it shut, sliding the bolt home. "They're not here for me," Kettridge said calmly from the floor. "They're here for the child." Clara rose to her knees, eyes burning. "No," she said. "They're here because you're afraid." Another shot. The stove rang like a bell struck wrong. Cole peered through the window's ragged edge and fired once, measured. A horse went down screaming. A man fell with it. The riders scattered, shouting. In the chaos, Kettridge lunged. He surged up, ripping the twine from the rail, knocking the chair aside. He grabbed for the baby with both hands. Time broke. Clara moved without thinking. She turned her body and took the impact, shoulder to chest, driving him sideways. He hit the table hard. Papers flew. Cole was there in a breath. He wrapped Kettridge's arms and wrenched them behind his back, forcing him to the floor. "Don't," Cole said. One word. Enough. Kettridge spat blood. "You can't win." Clara stood over him, breath tearing her ribs apart. "I already did," she said. The shooting outside faltered, then stopped. Shouts faded into the distance. The riders retreated the way they'd come, fast and angry. Silence rushed back in, ringing. Tom bound Kettridge again, this time with iron cuffs from his belt. The click sounded final. "It's over," Tom said, more to himself than anyone else. Clara sank into a chair, shaking now, baby pressed to her chest. She counted breaths until the shaking slowed. 1, 2, 3. Outside, snow kept falling, covering hoof prints, covering blood. The bell rang again. Once, then again. People stood in the ruined doorway and watched a man who had sat above them, now bound at their feet. Ketteridge lifted his head and met Clara's gaze. "This town will forget," he said. She shook her head. "No," she said. "It will remember what you taught it." She turned away. Behind her, the papers lay scattered across the floor, ink exposed to light, no longer protected by a drawer that stuck. And for the first time since winter began, the law had nowhere left to hide. Morning came with a colorless light that showed everything too clearly. Snow lay trampled in the yard, churned to gray by boots and hooves. The broken window gaped like a missing tooth. Inside, the stove ticked and popped, metal cooling after a night that had burned hotter than it should have. Judge Ketteridge sat cuffed at the table, wrists ironed together now, posture stiff with a dignity he hadn't earned. Blood had dried at the corner of his mouth. He stared at the grain of the wood as if it were a ledger that might still absolve him. Deputy Tom Briggs stood near the door, hat off, hair damp with sweat that hadn't come from work alone. He kept one hand on the cuffs, not because he feared the judge's strength, but because he feared the judge's voice. Mabel Rourke moved through the room gathering the scattered papers, aligning corners, smoothing creases. She did it like a woman setting bones. Clara sat on the bench by the stove with the baby asleep against her chest. His breath warmed the hollow at her throat. She counted without realizing she was doing it. 1, 2, 3. Cole leaned against the wall, rifle set aside, hands empty. He watched the door. He watched the windows. He watched Clara's shoulders rise and fall. Outside, people lingered. Not a crowd. Worse. Individuals, each with a reason to be there that they would not name. Tom cleared his throat. "We need to move him." Ketteridge looked up at that. His eyes were bright, alert again, calculating. "Where?" he asked. "To the jail," Tom said. Ketteridge smiled. "Which one?" Silence answered him. The nearest proper jail sat a day's ride south, across ground that had already proved how easily it swallowed tracks. Between here and there lay men who had taken his money and believed it still bound him to them. "They'll come," Cole said. "Yes," Tom answered. "They will." Clara lifted her head. "Then don't move him." Tom turned to her. "Ma'am, keep him," she said. "Here, where eyes are." Ketteridge laughed softly. "You think I'm safer in your house?" "No," Clara said. "You're safer in daylight." She shifted the baby, careful not to wake him. "They don't want witnesses. Neither do you." Ketteridge's smile thinned. "You learned quickly." "I had to," she replied. The bell rang again. Not frantic this time. Measured. Reverend Asa Pike stood in the doorway, breathless, eyes scanning the room. He took in the judge, the cuffs, the papers stacked neat on the table. "People are asking what comes next," he said. Clara met his gaze. "Truth." Asa swallowed. "And after that?" Clara looked down at the baby, then back up. "Choice." They moved Ketteridge into the front room and set a chair beneath the window where light fell clean. Tom stayed close. Cole took the porch. Mabel sent a boy running to fetch more witnesses, names that had been read aloud and had not yet run. The morning wore on, slow and tense. People came in twos and threes. Some spoke. Some did not. A few left quickly, faces pale. Ketteridge watched them all, cataloging. He spoke only once. "You are making enemies," he said to Clara. She didn't look at him. "I already had them." At noon, the sound came. The thunder of hooves, fast and many, cutting the air like a blade. Cole turned on the porch, hand lifting. He didn't reach for the rifle. 6 riders crested the rise, coats dark, faces set. They did not slow. "Inside," Cole said. Clara stood. She didn't run. She moved the baby to Mabel and stepped forward. "No," she said. Cole's jaw tightened. "Clara, they want me," she said. "They think I'm weak." She walked to the door and stepped into the cold. The riders pulled up hard, horses blowing steam. One man leaned forward in the saddle, eyes flicking past her to the window behind. "Where is he?" the man asked. Clara held her ground. "Inside," the man smiled. "Bring him out." "No," she said. He laughed. "This doesn't concern you." She took another step forward. "Everything that concerns him concerns me." A murmur rippled among the riders. One spat into the snow. "Judge's orders," the lead man said. "We're here to retrieve him." "Then read these," Clara said. She held up a page. One of the copies Mabel had pressed into her hand. The blue-green ink glared against the white. The man didn't take it. Behind Clara, the door opened. Tom stepped out, badge catching the light. "You'll dismount," Tom said, "and you'll leave." The man's smile vanished. "You don't have the numbers." Clara's voice cut in. "You don't have the truth." For a moment, everything balanced on the thin edge of breath. Then Ketteridge's voice rang from inside the house. Calm, cutting. "Enough!" He stepped into the doorway, cuffs visible, face composed. He met the riders' eyes one by one. "Go," he said. They hesitated. "I said go," Ketteridge repeated. "You're finished here." The lead rider stared. "Sir, you were paid to protect order," Ketteridge said. "Order has changed." A lie, but a useful one. The riders looked at one another. Calculation passed between them like a hand. They turned their horses and rode away without another word. Silence followed, heavy and ringing. Ketteridge looked at Clara. "You see," he said softly, "I still speak." Clara didn't answer. That night, they bound him again and kept watch in shifts. Snow fell harder, muffling sound. The house creaked and settled. Near dawn, the attempt came. A shadow slipped along the fence. A figure moved low and fast, knife catching moonlight. Cole met him in the yard without a sound. There was a brief struggle, cloth tearing, breath leaving a body in a wet rush. Cole disarmed the man and drove him to the ground, knee in his back. "Who sent you?" Cole asked. The man laughed through blood. "You know who." Cole tightened his grip. The man gasped. Clara stood in the doorway, baby in her arms, eyes sharp. She raised her hand. Cole stopped. The man lay there, trembling. "Take him to the barn," Clara said. "Tie him where he can be seen." The man spat. You should kill me. Clara looked at him. That's what he would do. She turned away. Dawn broke pale and clean, laying light over everything that had happened and everything that would follow. They moved Ketteridge at first light, not south, not to a jail with a name, but to the church hall, where the walls were thick and the doors strong and the windows high. Asa unlocked it without a word. People gathered again. Not out of fear now, but out of something closer to resolve. Tom read the charges aloud. Mabel presented her testimony. Clara stood and spoke last. She did not raise her voice. I was told silence would keep my child safe, she said. It did not. She placed the small metal piece on the table, the cord repaired, the letters clear. This is his name, she said. He is not a file. Ketteridge watched her with something like curiosity. You think mercy makes you strong, he said. It makes you predictable. Clara met his gaze. No, she said. It makes me free. They took him away under guard at noon, bound for a place where paper could not reach so easily and eyes would not turn aside. When the wagon rolled out, the town stood still and watched it go. Cole returned to the ranch and began to mend what had been broken. Clara packed what mattered and left the rest. That night, by firelight, she held the baby and let the quiet settle. 1, 2, 3. The house breathed. Outside, winter waited. But inside, something had ended, and something else, harder and truer, had begun. They left before the snow could change its mind. Dawn had not fully broken when Cole hitched the wagon and tightened the last strap. The air was sharp enough to cut breath in half. Frost glazed the ground like a warning not to linger. Clara wrapped the baby close and stepped out of the house without looking back. She did not need to. Memory would follow on its own. The ranch stood quiet behind them. The barn scarred. The fence mended in places that mattered. Smoke did not rise from the chimney. It didn't need to anymore. Cole climbed to the seat and took the reins. He waited. Clara looked at him, then nodded once. That was enough. They rolled out slow, wheels crunching, the sound swallowed almost at once by snow. The road south bent away from town, away from names that had learned how to hurt. The baby stirred and made a small sound. Clara pressed her cheek to his head, breath steady. 1, 2, 3. Behind them the church bell rang. Once, not for alarm, not for judgment, for leaving. They didn't stop until the land opened wide again, until the prairie stretched flat and honest and dangerous in the way truth often was. By midday, the sky cleared. Sunlight hit the snow hard, turning it blinding white. Cole guided the wagon down toward a river that cut clean through the land. Ice breaking in slow, patient cracks along its edge. They stopped there. Cole jumped down and checked the water, broke ice with the butt of his knife, filled the canteen. He didn't rush. He never rushed. Clara laid the baby down on a blanket in the sun. The child blinked, confused by light, then smiled. A small, uncertain thing that didn't know how much it had already survived. Clara laughed. The sound surprised her. It felt like something she hadn't owned in a long time. Cole looked at her, then away, giving the moment room. They ate in silence. Bread, cold meat, water that tasted like metal and mercy. After, Clara took out the ledger one last time. She flipped through the pages, names and dates and lines that had once been a lifeline. She closed it. "What will you do with it?" Cole asked. She held the book a moment longer, then wrapped it in oilcloth and placed it beneath a flat stone near the riverbank, far enough from water to stay dry. "I won't carry it forever," she said, "but I won't bury it where it can be forgotten." Cole nodded. They built the fire small, just enough to warm hands and boil water. Smoke drifted straight up, honest. That night the wind shifted again. Coyotes called in the distance. The baby slept between them, bundled and breathing. Cole sat with his back to a tree, rifle across his knees, eyes on the dark. Clara leaned against the wagon wheel, watching the stars emerge one by one. "Will they come?" she asked. "Yes," Cole said. "When?" He thought. "Not tonight." She accepted that. Silence settled in, the kind that did not threaten. The baby stirred once, then settled again when Clara placed a hand on his chest. Cole watched the movement of her hand, the steadiness of it. "You don't have to keep going with me," he said finally. She looked up. "This started because I stopped," she said, "not because I ran." He nodded. Still. She studied him in the firelight, the lines at the corners of his eyes, the scar at his jaw, the missing button that had once been a roof. "I choose," she said. The word landed clean. In the morning they moved again. Days followed a rhythm: travel, rest, watch, repeat. Snow gave way to hard ground. The land shifted from white to brown, from brittle to breathing. They passed no towns, only fences and wind and the occasional rider who nodded and rode on. On the fourth night, they camped near a stand of cottonwoods. The baby took his first unsteady step there, fingers clutching Clara's coat, knees wobbling like he wasn't sure the ground would hold him. Clara cried then, quietly. She did not hide it. Cole stood close enough to catch him when he fell. The baby laughed. Winter loosened its grip inch by inch. The days grew longer. The nights softened. One evening they reached a place where the land dipped and sheltered itself from wind. A creek ran shallow and clear. Grass pushed through the frost in stubborn green threads. Cole stopped the wagon. "This could work," he said. Clara looked around. She saw water, shelter, distance. "Yes," she said. They built a small cabin there over weeks, not fast, not easy. Clara learned the weight of a hammer. Cole learned the sound of the baby's laugh. Neighbors came eventually. Curious, careful. They were met with honesty and no explanation. That was enough. One Sunday, a man rode through with news from the north. Names spoken quieter now. A judge transferred. An investigation that did not hurry. Clara listened, then went back to hanging laundry. At night, when the baby slept, she sometimes reached for the cord at his neck, fingers finding the small metal piece. NH. A name, not a claim. Cole sat beside her and warmed his hands by the fire. "You did this," he said once. She shook her head. "We did." The wind moved through the trees, soft and steady. No bell rang. No one came. And in the quiet between one breath and the next, a family that had not been written into law chose itself, again and again, without asking permission.